Are you a business owner looking for real advice and input? You're in the right place. From concept to launch to growth, funding, and beyond. Welcome to Startup Hustle with your hosts. One once sold a business for $150 million. The other, the author of $1 Million Bedroom. Here are your hosts of Startup Hustle, Matt DeCourcy and Matt Watson.
And we're back. Another episode of Startup Hustle. Matt DeCourcy here with Matt Watson and another guy named Matt that we'll introduce here in a minute.
The trifecta.
Hi, Matts.
We've got the trifecta today.
Today will not be confusing at all. Well,
I'm going to be Master Watson today. I like it.
No.
And then we have Matt and Matthew.
Well, there you go.
Who am I?
Matt.
Let's just get this out of the way. So we have Matthew Condon, who's the CEO and the founder of Bardavon Health Innovations. Sir, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me here today.
I wanted to say Matt, but then I don't know who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
I'm just happy that we got three people in here today that all have the right name.
Yeah.
That's right.
So it is really confusing. So for those of you listening, today's episode of Startup Hustle is brought to you by Fullscale.io. And if you want to reach either Matt that owns it, you cannot email Matt at Fullscale.io because we could not figure out who would get that. Does that just bounce back? Someone, if you could email Matt at Fullscale.io and let us know what happened, that'd be great. And thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I'm really a big fan of what you guys at Bardavon are doing around town. If you're listening, we love it when you're interactive. Go to bardavon.com, BARDAVON.com, and you can learn more about what they do.
It's actually a Shakespeare reference, Bard of Avon. That's how people can reference it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
How'd you come up with that?
It's nerdy, right? You guys are going to make fun of me when
No,
I leave here.
we like
It's okay to admit that you are a fan of Shakespearean verse.
We prefer the weird and nerdy things.
Yeah.
And the thing is after you go to bardavon.com, you will quickly realize that everything is written in iambic pentameter.
Oh.
There you go. Yeah.
Wow.
That's right.
Haiku.
Talking about nerdy.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Wow, we're getting into haikus. What is a haiku? See, no one knows.
Form of poetry.
No one really knows. But what someone does know is what Bardavon Health Innovations does. So why don't we get back to that? Tell us about your business.
Yeah. I love it. We're going to fix healthcare from right here in Kansas City in ways that we've been dreaming about, I think, in the national marketplace for decades. But for the first time, Bardavon at scale is bringing the clinical performance of the doctor, provider, whoever is treating the employees of some of the largest employers in the country to the forefront of the decision-making process. We know which doctors, which providers heal patients, and so we're partnering with employers to bring that to scale today.
So when you talk about the clinic, my sister's a doctor and so is her husband, and
Yep.
I mean that's about as far as my grandfather was a doctor. But you talk about clinical performance.
Yeah.
I mean, what is the definition of that? Like, what
Yeah.
are the factors that go into having a high or low
Yeah.
anything?
Two buckets of data in healthcare. One dominates, and that's the claims data. When we talk about healthcare and what we're getting, we always talk about a $3.5 trillion annual spend. But we can't figure out how to turn what is the documentation system, which says what the patient looks like and if he or she heals, into data that we can run AI and machine learning against. And so we're changing that. So we're taking that clinical data. We have a cloud-based EMR that we are deployed around now almost 10,000 providers in 44 states. And they will document on our platform when we send them referrals from the employers we partner with. And as a result, we get to find out what comorbidities and complexities the patient look like and how long it takes him or her to actually heal. And that as a result, all the providers that are associated with that, it gets really exciting because we're talking about healing for the first time.
And it's not about an opinion; it's about data.
Yeah, it's not about
data. Not
Yeah.
like, hey, so technically you could maybe even not have a great bedside demeanor or manner, but if you're healing people.
That's right. Although
Yeah.
what we see with the data already is bedside manner has an enormous impact on healing.
Okay.
And so
Is it just because of the attitude?
It's because the attitude in our space too is starting with musculoskeletal work comp. So it's people get hurt for employers on the job. And so as a result, there's a functional requirement for return to work, lifting a 42-pound tire to a 38-inch shelf. And so by deploying all that information into the clinical document, we're able to see how long it takes Matt Watson, who was injured on the job to get back to a function where he's lifting a 42-pound tire to a 38-inch shelf for Goodyear, if that's the employer, and all the things associated with that.
I guess we back up for a second here.
Yeah, sure.
So can you tell us a little more about like why you started the business and like exactly who your customer is and the problem they're trying to solve and that part of it?
Thanks for doing that heavy lifting, Matt.
Yeah.
Nice job, Matt.
Thank you.
My bed manners are also very good.
Yeah, they
Your
are,
bed manners?
Yeah.
Now we're going back to the off-the-record conversations. Right?
Your bed manners or
You
your
said,
or your
bedside manners. Yeah, bedside manners.
It's all right, we do what you bet.
I mean,
Yeah,
is that
sorry.
because bed manners is like I think I have bad bed manners according to my wife because I pull the sheets over onto my side every night. So yeah, that might be a little different.
Again, this conversation is going great places already.
Yeah.
We're usually
It's supposed to be entertaining.
we're hyper focused here on this show.
So why did we start it? Because healthcare is broken, and it kind of goes back to the name. Bardavon was based off of a quote, and yet words are not deeds. I feel like everybody in healthcare for the last several decades have been talking about why we don't like our healthcare, why we're spending more, we're getting less, and frustrated with it. And we found a really niche part of the healthcare environment, which is workers' comp.
Okay.
That we believe that we can, for several reasons, it's employer influenced largely, so we don't have to market to the world. We can market to the CFO.
And the process is more controlled, right? Because it's
much
not
more
like
controlled.
I don't feel good and I go to a random doctor. In these cases,
They tell you
it's
what
kind of
doctor
more
to go to.
controlled of like, okay, you claim you have a workman's comp issue.
Yeah.
So we're like, this is kind of more white glove of like, okay, you have to go to this doctor. They're going to
Yep.
review this issue.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
you control the process a lot more, right?
And in
those
your
scenarios.
environment at home, you will stop going to the doctor when you can't afford it in
Right.
most cases now, right? Because
And workman's comp, I need to go back to work.
and there's a functional requirement
Yeah.
to do that, and it's 100% comp by the employer.
My brother-in-law just went through this. He works
Yeah.
at Quick Trip. He hurt his wrist. He couldn't lift a certain amount of weight. He couldn't use a dolly or whatever, and
Yeah,
he had
job.
to wait and whatever. So he was like going to the doctor religiously, like, please tell me I can go back to work. Please tell me I can go back to work, right?
Yeah, and I think for me, I'm a farm kid from Iowa, and it's a segment of the healthcare environment that has been largely, forgotten about. These are the men and women that build our buildings, build our roads. They deserve quality. They deserve, they deserve so much that they haven't been getting from the environment. And so for us to really build a really important, company in that space is important. The thing where it transitions is if any one of the three Matts here go to a doctor today. For a sprain, strain, or tear, our shoulder hurts. The first question we're asked is not our insurance, it's not our name, it's whether or not this happened at work. So as we pull that data forward at scale, we are now finding out about the clinical performance of not just the doctors and providers that make up the $70 billion a year industry that's work comp. We're finding out about 90% of the doctors that make up the $800 billion a year industry that is musculoskeletal in this country's healthcare system.
Well, what's interesting with these
How nerdy is that?
with these cases, you know a lot more about the outcomes because the outcomes have to be documented, right? Versus like
Yeah,
if we
that's
have
what I
a
was just
cold,
thinking the same thing.
if we have a cold, we take some medicine.
That's right.
Maybe we got better, maybe we didn't. Maybe we hurt our shoulder. Maybe we're okay. Maybe
and
we're
quite
just dealing
honestly,
with it,
on a
whatever.
personal level, if you were trying to collect my data about how fast I healed or how I felt, I would probably just not even reply because I
happen.
just don't
Yeah.
really care about filling that form out.
And the lawyer in me will tell you that there is one space in healthcare that in all 50 states has a HIPAA waiver that allows the provider to track and report otherwise protected health information if they reasonably believe it impacts the cost or duration of the claim as the sexiest thing to collect meaningful data at scale in healthcare. And
Is
it's only
the
in
phrase "sexiest thing" also included in that write up? And you could
It
tell
is now.
that he has made that statement many times. So well, it's backing up. So you mentioned as a lawyer, are you an attorney as well?
I am. Yep.
Okay,
Oh,
so
no.
No, I'm sorry.
well, I grew up around a family.
Are we
of
paying
attorneys.
$500 an hour for this now?
Yes.
If you'll pay me that, sure.
This is billable, and it's not you only get a 50-minute.
The
hour.
Greg would be like, no, it's 600.
Yeah.
That's what Greg
God,
would
where's
say.
he at? We should get him. We should have brought him in so we could have doubled the billing. Well, but yeah. So is that part of what? Were you ever practicing as an attorney?
No.
So you got a law degree, or
Yeah, I grew up farm kid, played football at Iowa State. Thank God met my wife, or she started dating me finally in college, and so then did a grad degree and a law degree, but always wanted to get into health and healthcare law because could see the world, clumsily trying to go from fee for service to fee for performance. We're still not there, and felt like I just had a passion that met with a moment, and it's been a great. I love it. I love it to this day. It's my second turn at it, right? So
sure,
I'll probably have 3 or 4 more.
Glutton for punishment.
And you had mentioned that, and we don't have to get too far into it, but you did actually have another business before. You said the third turn? Did you have another business before that?
Well, no, I've had a couple on the side, but really 2 most significant. The first one, ARC Physical Therapy Plus, that we started in 2003 and then sold.
And that was a springboard to Bardavon.
It was, yeah. And I think,
there's a lot of workman's comp related stuff with physical therapy, right?
Yeah, 80% in workers' comp. I think in healthcare, you got to wrap the service and the data collection together. You can't do them as disparate efforts. You got to, and so that was in many ways proof of concept for what Bardavon's become.
So you've thrown the word nerdy around a couple times, but to be nerdy with the data you collect, you mentioned AI and machine learning. Yeah. Is that true to form, and that you're seeking specific patterns and predictive analysis of the way certain things come out, and when you see a deviation from that path, it's like, oh, we need to see why?
Yeah, I think the problem with healthcare also is we've digitized all that data, but it's on disparate systems, and so there's data all over, but nobody knows what to do with it, right? And nobody knows how to get to it or make anything meaningful for it. So we have a cloud-based documentation system that is deployed across the country now. So everybody's on one instance, one naming convention, one architecture. So it's much more efficient and quick, honestly, to teach itself and to teach our team how to optimize the care.
That was something that it was actually Startup Hustle. It was way back in the 20s, when Brett Blackman had come in and was talking about the blockchain and how that could potentially be used in healthcare, and I never really thought about the sharing of the data and the zillion different things that collect it, look at it, So my wife is right now wearing an iWatch and a Fitbit for 2 different reasons, and it's like, why?
Totally. Yeah.
So all this stuff with medical records is a problem. If I asked you, I need to see a copy of your vaccination records, what would you say?
No idea.
I would actually just bite you with my foaming smile, but all right. So there's an interesting comparison. So you're right, Matt. And you can ask so few things. Now at Full Scale, we have 170 employees in the Philippines. You would be shocked at what they put on their resumes. Yeah. When they send them in, they will list their religion, their marital status.
Age,
I have age,
pictures,
weight.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And
wow.
I've seen one with blood type on it. And I'm like, wow. And so some of these things, I was just over there and I went through the hiring process, and some of the questions they asked, I was like, God, you guys would have hit a grand slam of HR violations there. And so with the sensitivity of that data, and you talk about HIPAA, and obviously data and data breaches and privacy and security, is that a major obstacle that you guys have to deal with? Is that something you're always wrangling? And
it should. I think there's what you can do from a regulatory environment, and there's medical ethics also over the top about what you should do and what you should. And so that is.
What's an example, when you, and we don't have to be too specific, but when you say because with the data holds a lot of, you start, those are your clues to telling a story or doing a bunch of things. And if you had enough specific data about someone and you knew what to do about it, you could probably make a lot of judgments, I'm assuming. So where does that, what are some of the lines that you have to not cross when it comes to ethics or just any of that stuff?
So, I'll give you an example without names. Obviously, we had a case a few years ago. Guy hurt on the job, had a safety-sensitive position where he was doing stuff that he posed risks to not just himself but others if he wasn't functionally able to do the job. We were rehabilitating him from that injury and found out that he had a neurological disorder and a disease that was going to continue to impact his ability to return to work and was impacting the cost and claim duration of this case. But his employer, he hadn't communicated that to his employer.
I see.
So we're stuck in a world.
And they were aware of it?
They were not aware of it.
Oh, so it literally it uncovered itself during the process.
Yeah, our providers are asking what's going on. He's letting us know his prescription history and why and what. And so things come up.
That starts to hit some triggers, and you say you might have this. Yeah. So is that where, in that case, is the line of ethics you don't want to cross, is that's his business and not the employer's?
But from there's an argument to be said that is the employer's business. They're paying 100% of that claim. It's impacting the cost or the claim duration, and so that's when you bring your smart people in and try to work some stuff out, honestly, without getting next stage, which is really private. But I think that's the importance of having people also involved in that data distribution and making some decisions on, just ethics. right? Personal ethics.
It's been a hot topic because you know, just like ethics in general is well, it's a variable.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally variable. There aren't, I've been having the discussion with Joel Goldberg, the Royals announcer, about some of the like the unwritten rules of baseball are kind of like ethics, you know, in some regards. And it's like, you know, they're not defined anywhere. And technically, when it comes to business ethics, and in college, you take a class about it and whatever, but technically the only written rules is the law. Yeah. So now it becomes highly debatable, you know, and I think some of that is you know, and Mr. Watson, maybe you have some input on this too, but like, I mean, where do you feel that a business will cross the line of ethics? Like, are we just all supposed to compete and try to win at any cost as long as it's within the context of the law, or are you trying to be cool on some level?
I mean, I think we all have to be ethical. I mean,
well, that means not stealing and stuff like that. But you know, it's such a competitive world, and everyone's trying to get a leg up, and it's it's
all about risk, and there's just different kinds of risk.
Right. Yeah. So Matt at Stackify, and for those of you that aren't aware, Matt's also the CEO and founder of Stackify. You can go to stackify.com. It's application performance management. You guys collect a lot of data too.
We do.
Is some of that? Do you have to look at some of that as saying, hey, there's a level of sensitivity that?
We actually purposely try and remove any potential sensitive data at the time of data collection because of that. Like, we don't want to touch it.
Because sometimes you could scoop it up.
And then our clients can send us data that could have sensitive stuff in it, and we're like, hey, just don't send it to us. We don't want it. Don't send us stuff.
So Fullscale is now the owner of a software platform I founded, which is gigabook.com, and we decided very early in the process we were not going to do medical. Yeah. We excluded it. Like, people will sign up and they're clearly in medical, and say, let them know that we are not going to be HIPAA compliant. We do not want that data. We didn't want the responsibility.
Yeah. But now we live in a world where somebody's cookie and IP address are sensitive data.
Totally. Yeah.
Not alone their name or email like their cookie.
Yeah. Right.
The cookie they use to go to your website now is sensitive information.
If you say cookie again, you need to give me one.
Chocolate cookies.
Yeah. But I also think, though, healthcare is so messy, right? It's so messy. It's been, you know, historically so messy. All of us, or all of those that can bring transparency and meaningful technology to that space. I mean, this is my kind of idealistic. I think we have a duty to do so, because there's so many people in the industry that have benefited from ambiguity and a lack of transparency, and so there is a real opportunity that transcends just business opportunity to the healthcare experience that our children are going to. That I think, and again, I'm pretty passionate about this space, but I think if we can bring meaning and clarity to that space, I think you guys should.
You mentioned something. You mentioned something a bit ago about people. You know, and my whole ever since I can remember, people have complained about healthcare. Yeah. And is there actually a solution that we can arrive at that people would universally or overwhelmingly be happy with? Because I feel like there might not be.
As long as there's capitalism in healthcare, there's always going to be some problems with it.
Sure.
I think that's the fundamental part. Like, I have an aunt that got a knee replacement that probably shouldn't have had a knee replacement, but the doctor or surgeon or somebody wanted to make a lot of money doing those knee replacements, right?
Yeah, but that same spirit of capitalism drives a level of innovation.
There is, so that's double-edged sword.
I mean, sure, I would want to cure cancer because, man, that's noble. But at the same time, you're like, man, if I cure cancer, I'm going to be the richest man on the planet, and I can beat Jeff Bezos on a
favorite doctors
path to the Mars.
You know, colonoscopy doctors want you to keep coming back every year and get that screening.
Absolutely. Did you pick that particular form of practitioner for a reason?
It's a business, right? They want more customers. They want to see you every year.
But I noticed you have your afternoon blocked off and brought up that reference.
That's my point. Like, there's capitalism in this, right? So,
but there's human psychology also. Look, we know how to be healthy. I mean, so there's the human.
But you say we know how?
Well, I mean, yeah.
Well, we know how, but we don't choose to be.
So what role do we each bring to this whole equation? So there's no silver bullet. I think anybody telling you that is at best naive and at worst just plain lying. It's going to be messy. It ought to be messy, and so that's when you want to bring technology, innovation, and people who really give a damn to the space.
It's a complicated problem. I was reading, somebody posted a meme yesterday, and it was about like how many people die per day based on all these different things. And of course, not to get all political, but like number one was like assault rifles, one person per day, like not very many. But then you get to like all these things like wrecks, all this stuff. But like medical errors was like
infection?
1,000 a
Yeah.
day, and that was their point of the meme, I think.
Yeah.
Compared to like some other things. But like 1,000 people a day die from medical errors.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people, especially compared to some of these other causes that get a lot of attention, like guns and shit, right?
Yeah.
There's a whole lot more people that die from medical mistakes, but nobody talks about it, and that was the point, right?
Well, in Congress with that, and then with the connection to capitalism, and we've talked about this once before. So my brother-in-law is an ER doctor, and he, a few years ago, called me up and he said, hey, I got a great idea. I want to talk to you about it. And I said, all right, cool. He came over. He goes, I want to put something on the non-signed-in screen of an iPhone that would let a doctor log in, because he said people come into the ER all the time and they're passed out, and like even homeless people have iPhones now.
Yeah.
And he goes, this could change lives, because the thing is if you're passed out and you come in, they don't want to give you certain things because they could make you worse.
Right.
And doctors in a very litigious world have become very scared of doing the wrong thing. And I told him, I said, Chris, you have a great idea, but how are you going to monetize this? And he goes, well, insurance companies would love this. They're going to save tons of money. I said, how are you going to prove that to them? This is completely intangible. You can't. And then your 5-year path to getting this in front of Blue Cross Blue Shield, are you prepared to go broke? But it was a perfect example. And by the way, and I also said, and I would be surprised if Apple didn't just give that away for free, which they did.
Yeah.
Like a year later or 6 months later. But that's a good example of it. Now, theoretically, that is a very noble idea and a very useful thing, but because the capitalistic nature of it was weak, it might not have been a priority. So, I mean, I think you have that you're right as well. And, so once I had a dentist basically force a root canal on me. And I didn't need it. I didn't feel like I needed it, but it was the same thing.
He makes money.
Yeah, so later that dentist sold their practice to another dentist, and I was really reluctant to come back in. And I said that to the dentist. I was like, I felt like she did this and it wasn't necessary. And the lady apologized to me. She goes, I'm going to just be honest with you. A lot of people have given us that feedback.
Well, and like nobody,
because it was revenue for her. They make more money that way.
Another example of this is nobody wants to kill grandma. So it's we're going to spend $1 million on all these treatments to try and get grandma to live one more year.
Yeah.
I mean, these are the realistic problems we have, right?
Well, and this is, I think, it's generational. I think our generation is changing it in that, my parents' generation just assumed doctors are doctors are doctors. I'm going to go to him, and whatever he or she says is going to be right. The reality of it is, especially if you sit in the foxhole we have, there's an enormous difference between the quality of doctors that you go to.
Oh, yeah. Without a doubt.
And yet, the marketplace treats everybody as the same. But there is an enormous difference between the clinical performance and quality of providers across the country. But yet, we just talk about how much it costs, and we've never gotten to that side. And so that's the effort. And the capitalistic nature of our clients being the employer, they actually make a better profit if they get their good workers back to work efficiently and effectively.
And so they don't want workman's comp lawsuits either.
We feed
right.
They want to get the workman's comp issues resolved, them back to work as soon as possible, healthy as possible, and then not sue them because they had the injury.
Now let's talk. In the same spirit of that, not all workman's comp claims are legit.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, they really aren't. It's a pretty, my back.
Yeah.
My back. And it's so, do you guys actually end up spotting that sometimes? You're like, hey, I smell smoke here.
We do. I would say, though.
Is that an ethical boundary you have to be careful around?
No, it's not. Because if it's fraudulent or inaccurate, we have an obligation to report that as well. Because it allows us to support those that are.
Well, that's a drain on the system, too.
It is a drain on the system. It is not as common as it gets notoriety for. Most people that make $40,000 to provide for their wife and 3 kids or husband and 2 kids, they get hurt on the job. It's scary.
Right.
They're hurt. It may not be as serious as they think it is, but we find that if you get through the noise, if you get through the the white coat kind of fear that a lot of people have, and you get really to what's happening, the vast majority are legit.
And some of that stuff's really hard to prove. So we have a friend. So the wife of the couple was working for a retailer and fell and smoked the back of her head on a concrete floor, smack.
Yeah.
And I mean, terrible concussion. And 2 years later, she still has very severe migraines, to the point that they make her vomit.
Yeah.
They're bad. But the thing is And at one point the employer was kind of fighting that a little bit because those things are tough, like back pain, tooth pain.
Tough.
And that's like, so my brother-in-law said that was I asked him a couple times, I'm like, people go to ER seeking drugs.
Yeah.
And those are the back and tooth pain. Because they're almost impossible to prove. You can't prove that your tooth hurt. Matt, does your tooth hurt?
Yeah.
If you told me it does, prove it. Right. So, some of that stuff too.
It may make it bleed. Hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah, pain is tough. Pain is really
You
tough.
need to tell your colonoscopist that you have a bleeding tooth.
Okay.
Yeah.
And a bleeding heart.
Yeah,
Oh.
totally. Yeah. I mean, if you didn't always wear it on your sleeve.
Yeah.
He's got his red on today, though.
Yeah.
Chiefs Friday.
It's Red Friday.
God, I keep forgetting that.
I got my red shoes on.
I'm glad we're not playing the Raiders today because I'm wearing black.
Yeah.
Maybe your colonoscopist would have been nicer on you.
Is there an algorithm? Does your AI determine the size of hand of a doctor? Because Matt is approaching 40, and that might be relevant.
Yeah.
This conversation is taking place as I did not predict.
It's important to keep it. On a lighter note, if you want to check out and follow Bardavon Health Innovations, you should search that on Instagram. And while you're there, check us out. We are at Startup Hustle Podcast. Now, if you're listening to this episode and you want to see how beautiful the mats are, check us out. We put a YouTube channel up a while ago. We're coming up on a couple hundred subscribers, which is all right. Not quite on pace with our listenership. For those of you listening, we have made it to 185 countries.
Hey, let me just take this opportunity to thank. I mean, this is going to sound cheesy, and that's all right. It's
Cheese it
nerdy
up.
and cheesy. I appreciate what you guys are doing. For a guy that's
Thanks.
not from here but come here and started a company and was scared to death and didn't know anybody, and then watched this community evolve over the last 15, 16 years. This kind of stuff is enormously important and often underappreciated.
Thank you.
And I think that's
Appreciate
real.
that.
And you could be doing your businesses and talking to your kids, but you dedicate your time and your effort to doing this kind of stuff. And I think on behalf of all of us that don't do this but love this community and think it's important, I appreciate it.
And with that, it's those of you that are out there that continue to listen.
Yeah.
And push us up on charts where we see, oh wow, we're in the top 200 for this.
Are we still a top 3 podcast?
No, after they removed the charts, which gave us the ability to then state any rating we wanted.
We were top 3 for a while, yeah.
But
Number one.
But what's crazy? So they have with that. Apple
We didn't know what we were, so we were
Apple
top
was
3.
trying to be better about the charts, which is nuts because their entrepreneurship category is an all-time ranking, and we're top
Really?
60, like for all time. Like, wow,
Whoop, whoop.
I
That's
know,
awesome.
man. But the thing is
Top 3 was better.
If guys like you, the female and the female entrepreneurs and everyone of all walks and shapes, like, we've tried to get all different kinds of businesses down here. We had a sex coach in here once.
Oh,
We've
wow.
had
That was probably the best episode ever.
It
What
was
podcast
good.
is that? I got to go
It's
back.
called The Business of Sex Coaching, and I've had some people ask, yes, when I said asking for a friend, every time I asked her, I was asking for Watson.
And then that's when we learned that Matt's goal in life was to be a head coach.
Really?
Oh, man.
That's actually a great goal in life.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
real? I can't tell if you guys are joking or serious.
No,
That's-
he's referring to something that I don't want to be a head coach of. Yeah.
Whoa.
Unbelievable.
It took me a while to catch up to that one.
There's a reason we just pre-mark every episode explicit. It's so we don't have to go back and make notes of
I
that.
believe I didn't pick that up.
Matt,
I'm sorry.
you did miss my recent recording with the Snow Pops.
Yeah.
Guy, alcoholic, like freeze pops.
Oh, alcoholic ones.
But I told him that if he didn't bring swag, but he's going to, and I told him that you are a especially lively host after you've had a couple.
Yeah.
And to listen to the food trucks episode. If you are out there, go find the food trucks episode. And yes, Master Watson was a little inebriated on that one. He had a couple lunchtime drinks. It was okay. It was all right.
Yeah, it was a good time.
That was fun though. And by the way, how did we miss the fact that? All right, let's ask the third Matt. What is the most popular kind of food truck? Like, what kind of food does it serve? Don't.
I'm gonna say tacos.
Number 2.
Yeah, number
Really?
2.
Yeah.
What was number
so
one?
we had 3 chances to
You'll
try
never
to get
believe
it,
what number 1 is.
and we missed on all of them.
What was it?
Frickin' barbecue.
Oh, kidding?
Yeah.
Now in Kansas City that would make sense, but this was like a nationwide thing. I'm like, nationwide?
Yes, it is the most popular form of food truck.
I went, you know what my answer was?
What was it? Pizza?
Snow cones.
Which, by the way, I'm gonna, Matt, I'm gonna hold my hat. I'm gonna hold my hat in my hand for a second because I really shamed you on that one. That wasn't that bad of an answer.
And every time you go see a bunch of food trucks, you see a snow cone.
Yeah, I know. Like I
actually love snow cones.
I've had some time to think about it, and Matt, you sending me like 60 pictures of snow cone food trucks has nothing to do with my mea culpa.
You said the other day that a friend of yours, every time you hear the song Africa, you like send each other a message.
Yes.
For the rest of my life, every time I see a snow cone food truck, I'm going to send you a picture.
Thanks. I have some weird.
I love that.
Do you have any weird contracts with like former friends? Because I have some buddies that every time if we're out in public and we hear Africa by Toto, we have made a commitment to just at a minimum text the word Africa to each other. 10 years later, still doing that. Now, Daryl, our COO of Full Scale, I am required to let him know when I'm in the presence of a bounce house.
Okay.
and that wasn't burdensome until I had kids, and now I'm like, wow, dude, I'm sending you a lot of bounce house pictures. I don't,
but I'm going to pick some of this up. This is a good influence on me because I kind of like this randomness.
And then you have the weird thing about the RVs.
I love RVs too.
No, you're going to make me. No, we're going to save that for another one. I had a job where I covered a 13-state territory, and you do a lot of driving. And now look, this was long before. This is when satellite radio was still a couple years away. You're trying to keep yourself busy, so we'll go. We need to have an actual RV business on here before I'm going to disclose the rules.
We'll keep that secret.
So speaking of business. Matt, you've been doing quite a bit of it. You have 150 employees now?
We do, yeah.
140 in Kansas City?
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now that's a hockey stick in the count a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah, we grew I think 35 this summer.
Okay.
So yeah, it's been, response. Our clients grown, our tech's gotten better, and our service level I think has improved, and so we pulled on bigger and bigger, highly referenceable clients with recognizable names, and it's been a blast. I would say, it's always a grind. It's continued to be a grind.
This is the fun stage, though.
The last 6 months have been the most fun I've had in years, honestly, and all the things that go along with that, but. My wife's awesome. My family's great. They're supportive of everything. They tolerate my travel schedule and everything. And the team there, here in Kansas City and throughout, there's a bunch of just freaks, like really talented people that care so much about the company. And so that gives you like excitement,
I think a caring employee is that intangible. You can't train it. Yeah. You can't make someone care. Like if you work at a company that I'm associated with and you care, like I care about, like I'll put up with more, like for real, because like that is something you can't teach. Yeah. And it's really a cool intangible. Now, one of the biggest, like the hottest subjects and the thing that people are always interested in learning more about is the acquisition of capital to help your business grow. Now you're a bit of a specialist at this point. You guys have raised close to $40 million. Yeah. I mean, wow. Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot. What is some advice that you can get? So I assume that the listeners that we have are all at different stages of their business. Many haven't even started. Some work for startups, some own them, some do different things. What's some advice that you can give people when it comes to raising capital? Like, and I don't mean at the $40 million range, maybe even just like getting started. Because, by the way, this Bardavon Health was a company of one at some point.
That's right, yeah.
And every company has been a company of one at some point. So what's some knowledge or what's some advice you can give for those that want to follow in your path?
I always think raising capital is difficult, but it's also shouldn't be the focus of what you're trying. The amount of capital you raise should be, it tends to be directly correlated with the kind of solution you're trying to bring to market. How big is it, right? And so raising capital in and of itself, I talk to people like, hey, I want to raise 10 million or 20 million, and why? What's the use of proceeds? What are you going to do with it? Because raising capital inevitably is going to be giving up some equity, right? And giving up some control of your company. Maybe it's a minority level, but I always challenge the other entrepreneurs that I talk to be really thoughtful about what they're trying to do and what they're trying to raise and why they're trying to raise it, before just the allure of raising $40 million. That to me is almost irrelevant. That capital is a tool to build a solution for the marketplace, and that's what it is. You have people, you have ideas, and you have capital. It's just one of the tools in your tool belt, and so being thoughtful about that is important. Now we're at this phase where we're
when you say being thoughtful, let's expand on that a little bit, because you mean like being thoughtful as far as like who you're taking the money from,
absolutely,
like what effect they could have on your business, and then like I look at the businesses that I own and operate. Like I have a responsibility as CEO of Full Scale to make decisions that are in the best interest of my business partner Matt, and also my employees, and do it in a way that isn't selfish or makes sense, and bringing the wrong kind of investor or people in that may have an interest in doing something different that could have a change on our culture or the way we do business or any of that is something I'm really sensitive to. Is that the kind of stuff you're talking about, or something different?
No, I think that's exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, I think you got to find the capital that believes in your mission and vision, and is going to support that with things other than capital along the way. Otherwise, you shouldn't grow that fast. I think if you're really committed to that mission and vision, I think you got to figure out a way to manifest that to the marketplace in the purest way you possibly can. Now, as you grow, what happens if at least my experience is then the capital, the private equity or the venture people will come and want to support your mission and vision. And so then even though they're bringing capital and they're bringing people, they're getting behind you on the path you're on. But it's all about timing, I think, and really being thoughtful about the who, the why, and the what you're going to do with that capital on the front end, and not be focused on the number.
Sure.
I think there's, I don't know, you guys may feel differently. I think there's too much focus on the number.
I was going to ask for Watson's input on that.
I mean, I hate the people that celebrate like how much money they've raised. And then like I see like it was Stripe or somebody announced this week they raised like another $350 million. I'm like, what are they even going to do with that? Like that's a shit ton of money. But I hate that sort of culture of like celebrating raising this crazy amounts of money.
That's something we've talked about on so many different episodes, is like, how about you stop and sell something?
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, I'm a sales guy. Like, I think nothing valid, and you were basically saying this in different words, but with the sales comes the validation, comes the interest in other people getting behind it. And like what you're talking about, what Stripe raised $350 million? Like,
I guarantee they're profitable. I don't even know what
do they do with that? I mean, that's.
I think people lose. That's what I said.
What do you spend that on?
I don't know.
I think what's good about what if there's any value in talking about the capital, and you guys and others have raised real capital here, it's that you can raise capital for big ideas here in Kansas City.
Oh,
now.
yeah.
And you can deploy it more effectively than you can, I would argue, on the coasts. And so that's part of the excitement, is if you do have a big idea that requires big capital, you can do it here now. There's still issues, right, here, and we're never going to have it completely solved. But I think the fact that it can be done in Kansas City now, exits help that. I think that's the beauty of this moment we're in this community right now.
And that's part of what we're trying to help do at Full Scale.
That's what I love you for.
Help people build software and use less capital to do it, right?
And or just to, and you say use less capital in some cases, and I'm sure you've run into this. Every business that is successful addresses a challenge or a problem, and the problem that we were addressing when Matt and I first became business partners, Full Scale wasn't even the plan. Really? But it was a hard time scaling. And I had an office in the Philippines, and I had some experience, and Matt, when I first met him, wasn't super in tune with remote development. In fact, he even told me once, he's like, I don't think that'll ever work. And as we got to know each other, he kind of just saw, he's like, okay, it's not a perfect solution, but it's an option. And maybe increased a little faith in the process.
Well, like a lot of people tried it out.
Sure.
Made it work.
And the next thing we know, we had people beating on our door saying, what do we need to do to get in on it? I think when Matt and I became business partners in what later became Full Scale, we didn't even have our arms anywhere close to being around the fact that there's a major tech and talent shortage. And if businesses don't have the resources they need to survive or access to them, it is highly problematic on many levels.
The problem is because of the shortage, it's hard to even find people.
And
then when you can find them, they're so expensive to hire.
Yeah.
Because it's an auction for whoever wants to
Yep.
pay the most amount of money to hire them. So
Yeah.
it makes it so crazy.
I had a recent comparison to that a talent, regardless of where it is in the world, there's a finite amount of it in a bucket. You can't make more senior talent.
Right.
Like as the years go by, sure, a predictable stream goes into that bucket, but you can't. There's so much attention on STEM and all this other stuff. Well, one of our competitors just released about 400 entry level people because that's the hard part is you still have to get experience. And as software and businesses become older and more complex, I'm sure you've gone through this at Bardavon, you need a higher level of expertise. So I think these are some challenges that people are going to have to deal with.
Well, there's only a certain amount of people that's in their DNA to do a certain type of job.
Yeah.
You don't take somebody who was a truck driver for 30 years and then magically the next day they're like an engineer, probably. Like maybe a very small percentage.
Right. Well, and then you look at
you don't retrain that whole workforce.
You talk about AI and machine learning and stuff like that. Let's just be realistic. There aren't a whole lot of people that have deep experience with any of that.
Very few.
Like, I mean, if you find anybody that has a couple years of experience with that, you are almost senior in that experience. The same thing with like data science, machine learning, things like computer vision. Like computer vision's been out for 15 years, but there aren't people that, like Joel Tepley was in here from Cambrian. Like, I mean, dude is like probably one of the top 200.
He's a savant.
He has because no one was doing it 10 years ago. So you have just this micro supply of so much of this. Like, as far as like overcoming some of that and scaling your business from a tech perspective, what are your guys' plans for doing that?
I mean, that is probably the number 1, 2, and 3 challenge that we have right now. Because I think this is the right community for a lot of startups because of the grind, the work ethic that is real. There's a differentiating work ethic here. Capital gets you further. Seed capital gets you further. The problem with this community right now, and I think it's a great problem, but it's a problem, is scale.
Yep.
And as we're all trying. Many of us have good ideas that are now growing, but we are inevitably fighting for the same talent in this community, and it is finite. So we've got to recruit it.
Yep.
For the most part, and so. We
try
talk
to
a lot about
recruit it or go find it.
Try to build it from inside, but that takes years, right? To get to the level that you want. And so it is all things to the middle, in many ways. And we often look from a recruitment standpoint, find the talent on the coast that has had a child, because this is a great place to come back to.
Yep, absolutely.
We moved back here. So you said you're from Iowa. I'm from here. I grew up here. But Jill, my wife, we moved our business 6 years ago back to Kansas City because we're like, this is where we want to be.
Yep.
Great community, great schools, great lots of everything. Some people, if you grew up in Manhattan, you might be bored with it, or you might really appreciate it because there's a lot of upside. And you talk about I feel that small markets, so Kansas City, we're not going to, this isn't San Francisco. This isn't New York. It's the 25th biggest media market in the country, but it's affordable. Yeah. And, and in the end, forcing yourself to make bad business decisions is never going to work out for you.
Right.
And that's the hard part. It's overpaying for talent, overpaying for rent. Like, I'm going to be in San Francisco in 2 weeks. It's $300 a night for a hotel. I'm like, really?
And that's really, that's not even a nice place.
I'd love
to, because it's.
Is that low?
Oh, that's
low. Did I get a good deal?
That's low right now. Yeah. I mean,
that's insane. That's just insane.
Last time I was there, I got a place that seemed a little shady, and it was still like $160 a night.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I didn't want to pay $600 a night to stay at the Marriott. So I went a little shady.
I might just
buy it. Worked out okay.
I think I'm just gonna. But
it was a little shady.
I'm just gonna buy a tent. Right. Or I'm gonna rent a van and just sleep in the back.
I
could probably buy a van.
How about an RV?
Maybe.
You can rent a car for the night.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I could probably buy a van with what I'm gonna have to pay for not 1 but 2 hotel rooms for 3 nights.
It's crazy.
I mean, that's crazy. So
that's an important point, though. I don't want to lose it. Going back to this community, that's what's important about density of startups. So you guys grow with your company. That's great for my company. Yeah. Because as I'm recruiting talent, if it doesn't work out at my company, they know they've got other startups. Or that's where the beautiful nature where we're all celebrating each other genuinely. Really hoping and wishing you guys have tremendous success, get a great exit. Because that's just a self-fulfilling circle that I think is we're at the cusp of in this community. We've got a lot more to do, but I think we're at a good spot.
What we run into a lot is businesses similar to yours that are now growing really fast. And the idea, if you're like, hey, you need 40 developers, it's hard to find them. It's going to be real tough. So Matt, since we want you to have the fully immersed startup hustle experience, it's time to play Mixtape.
Oh, sweet.
So mixtapethegame.com. By the way, I played the new app version last
Yeah?
night while I was at a Carrie Underwood concert. I was
Wow.
playing Mixtape. Well, I was in the Full Scale suite. We're having a good time.
Yeah.
Country
Yeah.
music fan?
No.
Oh,
But
I
we have a
love
suite
country
at the
music.
Sprint Center, and we invite investors, entrepreneurs, and influencers. You're going to need to come down
I would
soon.
love to come down.
I'm in the middle of a 5 out of 6 night run.
He needs to go to Jonas Brothers.
I'm going to see Carrie Underwood. Tonight I'm going to a Latino
love
artist
that.
I've never heard of. I will see JoJo Siwa and the Jonas Brothers on back-to-back nights. This is
Wow.
me beating my head in the microphone. Then I get a day off, and I get to go see the Black Keys, which I'll be cool
that'd be
with.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
that'd be
that's
awesome.
like my reward for making it through the weekend, maybe.
Yeah.
But, we have a good time. And by the way, one of our guests last night covered herself in Startup Hustle stickers, took a picture, and posted it on social media.
Nice.
And then I
That's
found it. I was like,
awesome.
Erica from Lever One. Thank you.
That is awesome.
Guest pick of the year, without
Wow.
a doubt. We will post that on the at Startup Hustle Podcast Instagram. All right, so
Wait, what is Mixtape? I guess I'm...
this is a party game.
All right,
And we're building an app for this, which is going to be as fun, if not more, than the game. So
I love
I
it.
pulled a card out of the Mixtape deck. I'm going to read a scenario,
Sounds
and then
dangerous.
we are all going to pick a song based on that scenario.
Okay.
And then we will vote for who the winner is. You cannot vote for yourself. Here's the scenario. You walk into the club. You lean up against the back wall, and you're putting out a vibe. What song do you want to hear first that goes with that?
Man, this is so abstract for me. I've been
gonna-
married 20 years.
I'm sexy and I know it. That Right Said Fred song is what I'm going with. You can go Matt.
Can I use the hack?
No, you can. That's the thing we realized, that "Fuck You" by CeeLo Green is like it's like the skeleton key of answers for mix. It. By the way, it is for. I'm banning it as the,
Oh,
as
no.
as the mixtape commissioner that I just elected myself to be. CeeLo Green, his entire catalog. I'm coming down hard. This is like Pete Rose. Like, you are banned from mixtape, CeeLo
Oh,
Green.
my God.
So any song, I'm going with "I'm Sexy and I Know It" by Right Said Fred. Because why not? You can pick any
honestly,
song
like,
here, guys.
This is what stinks when you're like a country music fan and you don't really.
Oh,
have
country
cool
music would
songs
be.
to
Oh,
go to.
sure it would. Country music's like made for it. Like these boots are made
Okay,
for walking.
let's
or something
go with
like
"She Thinks My Tractor's Sexy" by Toby Keith. That's what all the girls are thinking when I'm standing in the club.
First off, what club are you in where that's the vibe you want to put out? I mean, I know we're in Kansas, and
So great.
now Condon's from Iowa, so he might be like, dude, all the clubs in Iowa,
Yeah.
that's the vibe I'm trying to put out.
It's 3 country songs and then gin and juice. That's what I mean. Like then you do 3
Yeah.
country
Yeah.
songs, and
Yeah.
that's kind of how it works.
There you go with that one, Snoop Dogg, Gin and Juice.
I
Or
could,
is that Dr.
yeah,
Dre?
that's a good
Snoop Dogg.
vibe.
It's Dr. Dre.
If I don't
Lame,
if
though,
I don't
but
win
yeah.
if I don't win this,
I think you won it. I think you won it right off the top.
You won.
Actually,
did you
no,
guys just concede?
Yeah, you won.
Yeah, all right, fair enough.
Okay,
I know the tractor. That was clever though. I mean, "Sexy and I Know It" is kind of like
I feel like that's a little more topical. It fits a little better. Wow.
It's a great game though.
Man. So, if you want
Where
to,
do you go from here?
you get anywhere. Anywhere is up from here, people. So, all right. So, once again, thanks for coming in.
Yeah,
I
thanks
know
for
you're
having me.
super busy.
No, it's
Business is
awesome.
growing. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for the kind words about the show. Once again, kind words from us.
was real.
Actually, I gotta look this up because we have another. We like it when you give us a 5-star review and you follow and rate and subscribe. I have another review to call out. So
And by the way, while he's looking that up, a big thank you for being part of the Chamber of Commerce and
Oh, yeah,
all of
thanks.
your.
we didn't even get into
all
that.
your work that
yeah,
you do there,
community,
community work,
man.
and-
That your tribe sets the vibe, man, and you're right. Like, this is get involved in your local community. Like,
Yes.
there's startup events, there's chamber events, there's
Yeah.
different stuff, and if you don't have them, make them.
Yeah, and I would say there's my one plug for those of our generation that are going to be the business leaders or that of the future. That's a place that we can go and meet. That older or more experienced community right now where
Yep.
they are.
Yep.
That's their environment. So we can either sit back in our coffee shops and bars and complain about it, or we can go meet them where they are and try to influence that movement faster. And I think it's important that all of us, take whatever path that is for us and get really involved in our community in a way that is meaningful.
And if you're here in Kansas City and you want to come to a Sweet and Greet event, where we do networking in local suites. We wanted to take the work out of networking. So we have a suite at the Sprint Center. We've been doing events at the K. We like to invite people to come have a good time. And if you cover yourself in Startup Hustle stickers, you'll get a shout out. Anyway, I want to say thanks to I Am the Bee One. 5-star review. It said, my 2 favorite things on a podcast: get you inspired and learn something new. You'll get this and so much more on the Startup Hustle. Topics range from starting a business to marketing tips and must-have tips if you consider yourself an entrepreneur. Thank you for the feedback.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Now, as we round out this episode, Matt, I'm going to, as in Matthew, Mr. Condon, I'm going to give you the mic for a second because you clearly have done well as an entrepreneur, and I'm going to let you just kind of freestyle like gin and juice style.
Nice.
About, what would you want to tell people that want to be successful as an entrepreneur or business person, and it can be well-rounded, whether it's personal, professional, physical advice, whatever you got.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the entrepreneurs that I visit with or have some role in relationship with, I always talk about your support team around you, husband, wife, partner, whatever it is, making sure you've got a really good team around you. And then the people that you bring in to be part of that mission and vision from a professional standpoint are incredibly important. And it sounds cliche, but when you go through this journey, you're inevitably going to have highs and lows. You're going to be distraught. You're going to get overconfident. And sometimes just as much supporting when you're down is when you're feeling pretty good about yourself. Having somebody to say, hey, you're not that big a deal, you got some work to do, is a valuable piece to it all. And in the end, success is whatever you define it as. And I think having people in your lives that are important and making sure you maintain that as you go through the kind of frenetic journey that is entrepreneurship is incredibly important. Not burning it down along the way, but really having people around you and teams and people that you care about and love, and that can't be understated, I think.
You need support.
Well said.
Absolutely.
Well said.
Absolutely.
And with that, thank you to my wife, who's patient.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a thing. I was talking to someone in the suite last night, someone's wife, and I often, that's a subject. I'm like, thank you for being patient.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know, it requires it. It'd be
patient, and I think challenging. Like what I always say after the first exit, my wife was maybe the one that was like, you need to go do something else or you're going to go crazy. Like,
or you're going to drive me crazy?
Yeah,
that's what my wife
and that's
would
okay,
say.
right?
Yeah.
Like, she also knows what I'm not good at and what I need to really focus my efforts on so that we all stay sane along the way. And having those kind of people around you, even at the professional level, like Mary, my assistant, has been with me for 11 years. I love her. She yells at me. We have a Mary rule that if you're going to swear, you got to shut the door of my office, at the office, which is important. But she and so many other people around that are really important, and keep you grounded as you go on the ride are critical.
Well, once again, thank you for coming in. If you get a chance, go to fullscale.io. You can see what Matt and I do and some of the solutions we provide for entrepreneurs, startups, and businesses at all stages. Check us out on Instagram at Startup Hustle Podcast. I know, money gun fight coming along. While we would love to stay here and chat with you, oh my God.
That's so awesome.
This is what
I get one of these guns.
And by the way, this is what happens when I leave the money guns out for Matt. And literally that just is very broad in general.
My kids think this is actually how it works.
Since you work in and around healthcare, I would really like to recommend not touching those ones. But yeah, so anyway, thank you for tuning in and listening. We got to go because Matt Watson has a colonoscopy appointment.
Yeah, thank you.
See you next time.
Thanks, guys.